August 6, 1945. The Enola Gay drops the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. In an instant, 140,000 people are gone. The mushroom cloud rises, and the world changes forever. 3 days later, Nagasaki. Another bomb. Another city erased. The war ends. America celebrates its scientific triumph, its military genius, its moral victory over fascism. Newspapers print photographs of white pilots, white scientists, white officers. The narrative is clean, heroic, triumphant. But there's something they didn't tell you in history class. Something they deliberately hid for 80 years. Black soldiers were there. They loaded those bombs. They guarded the secrets. They made the impossible mission possible. And then America erased them from history. This is their story. Let's go back to 1941. Pearl Harbor has just been attacked, and America is thrust into World War II. Over the next 4 years, more than 1.2 million black men will be drafted or enlist to fight fascism overseas. They're told they're fighting for freedom, for democracy, for the American dream. They wear the same uniform as white soldiers. They salute the same flag. They bleed the same blood. But here's the reality that no one wants to talk about. While black soldiers fight tyranny abroad, they return to a country that won't let them vote, won't let them eat in the same restaurants, won't even let them use the same bathrooms as white soldiers. The U.S. military in 1945 is completely segregated by official policy. Black troops are systematically assigned to labor battalions, to what the military calls service units. They load cargo, build roads, clean latrines, cook meals, dig ditches. White officers command them. White soldiers get the glory, the medals, the front-page photographs. Black soldiers get the grunt work, the invisible labor that keeps the war machine running. The Army's official position, documented in internal memos and training manuals, is that black men lack the intelligence and temperament for technical work or combat leadership. This isn't whispered racism. This is policy, written down, signed by generals, enforced at every level of command. But then something happens that changes everything, something so secret that most Americans don't even know it's happening. In 1942, deep in the deserts of Los Alamos, New Mexico, a program begins that will alter human history. Code name, the Manhattan Project. Scientists are racing against Nazi Germany to build the world's first atomic bomb. It's the most classified operation in American history. Billions of dollars are poured into facilities across the country. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Hanford, Washington, Los Alamos, New Mexico. Entire cities are built in secret, surrounded by barbed wire and armed guards. Over 130,000 workers are employed, and most of them have no idea what they're actually building. And among those workers are black soldiers and civilians. Segregated, of course. Kept in separate barracks, separate mess halls, paid less than their white counterparts. They're given some of the most dangerous jobs in the project. Handling radioactive materials, constructing facilities near active reactors, transporting uranium ore. When safety protocols fail and workers are exposed to radiation, black laborers are often the ones sent into contaminated areas. Their medical records are incomplete. Their names rarely appear in official project documentation. They are, by design, invisible contributors to the most important scientific achievement of the century. But the Manhattan Project is just the beginning. By early 1945, the bombs are ready. 2 devices, one uranium, one plutonium, each capable of destroying an entire city. Military planners face an enormous logistical challenge. How do you transport the most dangerous weapons ever created across 6,000 miles of ocean to a tiny island in the Pacific without the Japanese discovering your plans? The answer is Tinian Island, a small speck of land in the Mariana Islands, recently captured from Japanese forces. Tinian becomes the final assembly point, the launch pad for the most consequential military mission in history. The island is transformed into the world's busiest airfield, with 4 massive runways capable of handling the B-29 Superfortress bombers. And this is where hundreds of black soldiers are stationed, members of segregated service units attached to the 509th Composite Group, the elite squadron chosen to deliver the atomic bombs. These men are assigned to the 1st Ordnance Squadron, responsible for handling and loading weapons. They're part of security battalions that guard the weapons storage areas around the clock. They're in maintenance crews that service the B-29 bombers. They're in construction units that built and maintain the runways. They handle the most volatile weapons in human history. One mistake, one dropped tool, one spark in the wrong place, and the entire island could be vaporized. In late July 1945, the USS Indianapolis secretly delivers the components of Little Boy, the uranium bomb destined for Hiroshima, to Tinian Island. Black soldiers are part of the teams that unload the ship, transport the components to secure facilities, and begin final assembly. The work is grueling and terrifying. They know these aren't ordinary bombs, though most don't know the full extent of their destructive power. Security clearances are strictly enforced. Photographers document the process, but black soldiers are routinely moved out of frame or told to step aside when official pictures are taken. It's not subtle. It's not accidental. It's policy. On August 5th, black ordnance specialists work through the night loading Little Boy into the bomb bay of the Enola Gay. They use specialized equipment to hoist the 9,000-pound weapon into place. They check and recheck every connection, every fuse, knowing that millions of lives depend on their precision. The next morning, Colonel Paul Tibbets and his all-white crew take off for Hiroshima. The mission succeeds. The world learns about atomic weapons. Newspapers print photographs of the crew, of the scientists, of the generals who planned the operation. Black soldiers don't appear in a single image. 3 days later, the process repeats with Fat Man, the plutonium bomb loaded onto boxcar for the Nagasaki mission. Again, black hands load the weapon. Again, black soldiers guard the compound. Again, the mission succeeds. Again, they are erased from the official narrative. When the war ends and soldiers return home, white veterans are celebrated with ticker tape parades and the GI Bill, which helps them buy homes and attend college. Black veterans return to Jim Crow America. Many can't vote in the states they risk their lives to defend. Some are lynched while still wearing their military uniforms. The message is clear. Your service doesn't change your place in this country. For decades, the story of black contributions to the atomic missions stays buried. The men who served remain silent, some bound by military secrecy oaths, others simply never asked about their experiences, many understanding instinctively that America isn't interested in their version of history. But in the 1990s, something begins to shift. Historians start interviewing the last surviving members of these segregated units. Families begin searching through old footlockers, finding letters, finding photographs that the military claimed didn't exist. In 1995, Horace Hinton, a veteran who served with the 1st Ordnance Squadron on Tinian, speaks publicly for the first time in 50 years. He describes loading the bombs, watching the planes take off, knowing he was part of something monumental. He also describes being moved out of photographs, being told that his unit's contribution was classified, believing for decades that his story didn't matter. Other veterans come forward with similar accounts. The National Archives begins releasing previously classified photographs from Tinian Island. And there they are, black soldiers standing beside the Little Boy and Fat Man bombs before loading, working on the Enola Gay's landing gear, guarding the assembly buildings with rifles. The evidence is undeniable. These men weren't peripheral. They were essential. Researchers make an even more disturbing discovery. Original photograph negatives are uncovered that show black soldiers present at key moments in the mission. Negatives that were cropped, edited, or simply filed away as classified for 5 decades. This wasn't bureaucratic oversight. This wasn't accidental omission. This was systematic erasure, official policy designed to write black Americans out of one of the nation's defining moments. Military photography guidelines from the era are found that explicitly instruct photographers to minimize the presence of Negro troops in official documentation. Command reports from Tinian are discovered with entire sections redacted that describe the contributions of segregated units. When Life magazine and the Saturday Evening Post published spreads about the atomic missions, editors received photographs that included black servicemen, but chose images that did not. The conspiracy wasn't hidden. It was just never questioned. And here's where the story becomes even more painful. This pattern of erasure extends far beyond Tinian Island. Black mathematicians, including women like Katherine Johnson, calculated trajectories for early rocket tests and space missions, their names scrubbed from NASA reports for years. Black soldiers in the 761 Tank Battalion helped liberate concentration camps in Europe, but their photographs were excluded from Holocaust museums for decades. Black nurses in the Army Nurse Corps saved thousands of lives in battlefield hospitals, yet their citations were mysteriously lost in military archives. The Manhattan Project itself employed thousands of black workers at Oak Ridge and Hanford, exposed to radiation without adequate protection. Their health never properly monitored, their contributions never officially recognized. The atomic bomb story isn't an anomaly. It's the pattern. For generations, black Americans have been essential to America's greatest achievements and then systematically erased from the historical record. The reason is as ugly as it is obvious. Acknowledging black excellence, black intelligence, black courage threatened the entire structure of white supremacy. If black soldiers could handle atomic weapons, how could segregation be justified? If black minds could win wars, how could educational discrimination be defended? If black heroism could save the world, how could anyone claim racial inferiority? The answer was simple. You couldn't acknowledge these contributions. You had to erase them. You had to control the narrative so completely that future generations would never question who built America, who won its wars, who made its scientific breakthroughs. History, it turns out, isn't just written by victors. It's written by those who control the cameras, the archives, the textbooks, the monuments. Today, descendants of these forgotten soldiers are fighting for recognition. Historians continue piecing together fragments of truth from declassified documents. In 2015, a small memorial was erected on Tinian Island, acknowledging the contributions of all servicemen involved in the atomic missions, though it doesn't specifically name the black units or show their faces. Even in remembrance, the erasure continues. But the truth is emerging, slowly, painfully, one recovered photograph at a time. Those black soldiers on Tinian Island didn't load those bombs for glory or recognition. They did it because their country asked them to, because they believed in something larger than themselves, because they held on to a fragile hope that their sacrifice might earn them the dignity and equality they deserved. They were wrong about that last part, but they weren't wrong to hope. The lesson here transcends the atomic bomb. It's about every history book that tells half-truths, every monument that honors selected heroes, every story carefully edited to maintain comfortable lies. The forgotten soldiers of Hiroshima and Nagasaki weren't forgotten by accident. They were erased on purpose, erased because their excellence was inconvenient, because their heroism was threatening, because their humanity challenged everything America wanted to believe about itself. But here's what erasure can never accomplish. It can never change what actually happened. The truth exists whether we acknowledge it or not. Those black hands still loaded those bombs. Those black soldiers still made history. And now, finally, 80 years later, we're beginning to speak their names and tell their stories. The question is, how many other stories are we still refusing to see?